Abraham Lincoln had said that people are just about as happy as they decide to be. And isn't that the truth, right? You know, happiness is a decision. And for years I fought this because my dad is a great man, a phenomenal human being. But dad had a tendency to kind of look at the grumpy side of things, I think, when we were kids. Of course, he was under a tremendous amount of stress. He worked really, really long hours, had a lot of responsibility, and he would come home but I always kind of grew up believing that was just part of who I am. That, that was in my genetic makeup to just be kind of grumpy and negative and sarcastic and cynical and all the rest of that. But I'm going to let you know right now that that's just not the case because I made a decision, and it's funny. I was about to say I made a decision to change, and now I'm a completely different person. It's difficult to unlearn decades of behavior. Okay, so I was probably 34, 35 before I decided, I don't need to be cynical and sarcastic all the time. I don't need to be negative all the time. Happiness and joy is a decision, right? It truly is a decision. And when I figured that out, man, it was like a light bulb going off. But I will tell you, there's a tendency for me to slip back into, that old habit pattern, right? It's like a comfortable pair of jeans or a warm bed, right? Habits are hard to get out of. They're real easy to slip back into, right? Okay. So it's not like a miracle pill. It's not like you make a decision to change the way that you respond to stuff and then all of a sudden you'll just, ta-da, right? It's something that you work on. It's something that you'll overcome. Some people we say that they're naturally that way. They're not naturally that way. They've just always been that way. Right? That's been their habit pattern from the time they were very young. Maybe they had a different example. Maybe they made a decision much earlier in life. Who knows? But in another 5 or 10 or 15 years, it'll be this will become my natural mode. And so when I slip back into an old habit, that old habit will be just, be joyful and happy. But I'm letting you know, it's a decision you get to make. And this is really empowering now. This is really empowering because if you understand that you get to decide how happy or joyful you are, then guess what? Now all of a sudden, no one, anywhere, ever has the power to make you miserable. Think about how empowering this would be. If you knew that no one or no circumstance ever in your life would have the power to make you miserable or unhappy, would that be worth something to you? I wrapped something up in a bow and just handed it to you. This was a gift, right? You have the power. You have the ability to decide how you respond to the world around you. And this sounds like psycho mumbo jumbo, guys. I get it. But let me tell you something. When you make a decision to just be joyful, just be happy, and not let things get you down or get under your skin or worry you, it's very liberating. It's like throwing off this really heavy weight that you've been carrying around for some of us decades, right? This feeling of guilt or responsibility that we somehow have to be always upset or have some high level of emotion or drama attached to things. Otherwise, people will think that we don't find them significant in our lives. And guys, that's just not true. Everybody deals with things in different ways. But I'm going to tell you something. When you just decide to be a happy, joyful person, it doesn't mean you'll never be in a bad mood. It doesn't mean you'll never you'll never have the blues. You'll never be down about something for a few minutes. But I'll tell you snap out of it so much faster. And then you begin to become conscious of it. And that's when it gets fun. Because you'll start to feel kind of grumpy or blunt. And you'll go, wait a minute. I don't have to feel that way. I don't have to feel that way at all. I get to make a decision to feel differently. And when that begins to happen to you now, I'm going to tell you, so your life really begins to change. Because then you begin to become the person that when the poo hits the fan, right? When the roof is caving in and everybody else is running around like chickens with their hair on fire, you're like James Bond. You're calm, cool, collected, all smiles. Hey, this is going to be all right. We're going to be fine here. And people are just attracted to that kind of even keel emotional maturity. And they actually did a study at Harvard several years ago and determined that the number one factor that determines someone's success in life was not their education. It was not their IQ. It was not even their particular acumen to business or to numbers or to reasoning it was something called emotional maturity or your EQ, your emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence or emotional maturity. They're interchangeable. And when they did this study, they found out it's that people that can maintain their positive perspective of the world in the face of circumstances, in the face of challenges. People that can remain optimistic, or people that can just remain even keel. They don't get too high, they don't get too low. They just kind of understand that, hey, this is life and we'll get through it and move on to the next thing. And what's the big deal? They found that people that had a longer range vision for their future had an easier time being even keel and down to earth, and having long-term vision would raise their emotional intelligence or their emotional maturity. And that factor and that factor alone had the greatest degree of influence or effect on how successful people became. So knowing all of this now, wouldn't it be amazing to just decide right now that you were going to be a more attractive person, you were going to become more successful, you were going to have all of these things in your life because you just decide to raise your emotional maturity by having long-term vision, being conscious of your emotions and how they come from you in certain circumstances, and then just shut them down and make a decision to react differently in the different circumstances in your life. It sounds easy, it's not. It sounds simple, it is, but it's hard, but it's worth it. I'm letting you know right now. You can begin to alter your life in ways you never dreamed possible if you can begin to get a grip on your emotions and start to control how you respond, not react, but respond to the world around you. That's the dose, guys. Make it a great week.